Hello and welcome to this introductory workshop on ADA compliance. Thank you all for joining. There have been a lot of changes to the thesis process, and we here at the Division of Graduate Studies, and specifically the continuing students team, want to make sure for those completing these requirements that you have the resources and tools for a seamless thesis check process. The goal is for students completing the CE requirements to leave today feeling better and more prepared about the requirements and outcome. We will begin by introducing ourselves and our roles at the Division of Graduate Studies. Hello, my name is Maham, and I am one of the continuing student specialists.
Hello, my name is Mariana, and I am the other continuing student specialist.
To begin, I want to first direct your attention to a number of resources beyond the thesis requirements available. As continuing students, the place you want to be most familiar with, and that will be most helpful to you, in my opinion, is the Steps to Graduation webpage. Please go ahead and click through and expand each of the sections in order to view the information that is relevant to you. These requirements lists from the beginning, the first time you become a continuing student and submit your Advancement to Candidacy form, ATC form, all the way to submitting your proof of completion and final form for applying for graduation. The second place I'd like to direct your attention to is the continuing students deadlines page. Here we list important dates and deadlines for continuing students that you should take note of. For example, the final deadline to apply for graduation is May 14th, 2021, and for summer 2021. So if you have not already applied for graduation, I suggest doing so when you're ready. And finally, let me just direct you to some other resources that we have made available. So let's say if you want to make changes to your thesis or other scholarly works, then that is absolutely possible. You can refer to the title change form, which I can demonstrate how you can get to. So again, all of these forms are located on our website. So from the Forms tab, under Culminating Experience Forms, you'll go ahead and go to Title Change Form. And there it is. Perfect. And that'll allow you to change the title of your thesis, dissertation, or scholarly works. Similarly, if your committee has changed, if you're using different research for a program or gaining expertise from someone, then there's the committee revision form. This form is also found on our website, and it'll be under the same tab, actually. It'll be under Culminating Experience Forms, Petition for Committee Revision. So you'll go ahead, request the old committee to fill in, and then put in the information for your new committee. All right. And another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was the consideration of embargo. So if you would like to delay the publication of your thesis, dissertation, written creative works, or music composition, then just make sure to discuss the timeline of release with your committee chair before your final submission. And this is just to make sure that students who do submit for their final submission will not be allowed to make any changes. So you really want to make sure that all the information there, the time of release, all of that is decided beforehand before you go ahead and submit. And finally, if you have any other questions about these or other materials, then you can go ahead and reach out to either Mariana or myself, and we'll be happy to discuss with you. If you haven't, or if you didn't know who your continuing student specialist was, please take the time right now to go ahead and refer to both of the programs on either side of the screen and reach out to us accordingly based on that. And we'll help answer any specific questions. Like I said, as your continuing student specialist, Mariana and I, we will be awarding your degrees. And so it's very important to maintain good communication with us, not just for the scholarly works submission process, but for graduation requirements in general. 98 dissertation. You guys are all in the right spot. This is the Zoom workshop for you. Wonderful. If you are completing any of the other CEs, the 892 internship, 895 field study, then you can actually go ahead and leave this workshop and this Zoom meeting and refer to the Steps to Graduation page to find out what your proof of completion requirements are. All right, awesome. And hopefully the template, so for everyone who is still here, wonderful, you are in the right place, and we will be moving on to the template demo shortly. But let's first go into what ADA compliance is, right? Because this is important. If this is something that we're requesting you guys to do, then I want you all to have that information available, because you shouldn't just follow things that people tell you to do without knowing what the reason for them. So why ADA compliant? ADA stands for Americans with a Disability Act of 1990. So the ADA is a civil rights law, actually, that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. And I have some more information for you here on the ADA website. And you can also go ahead and read San Francisco State's accessibility statement as well. So here at the university, we are committed to creating a culture of access for an inclusive learning and working environment that ensures all campus information, resources, and technologies are fully accessible to everyone. And that is why your thesis, dissertation, and scholarly works should also be ADA compliant. But there's benefits for you too to make your documentation and scholarly works ADA compliant as well, because it creates accessibility. Your scholarship will be able to reach a larger population and body of people. And of course, as scholars, we all want people to read our works. Why else are we writing so much? Yes. And we want to make it accessible not just to all people, but certain individuals who have a harder time accessing as well, right? So it makes your works accessible to screen readers and other assistive computer technologies. This again creates more visibility for your documents that you're working so hard on. ADA compliance and these helpful resources also help you not only just in your program here at State, but as a professional in your field, and for your career, hopefully in the future as well. And finally, there's no getting away from this. This is a requirement in order to be awarded and complete your degree. So you will need all of your scholarly works to be ADA compliant in order for Mariana and I to complete our side and award your degrees. So that is another part, of course, of the submission process. All right. Yes, so the timeline for spring 2021, now we're getting into the real specifics of it. So just make sure to plan ahead, right? To meet the timeline for each format and accessibility checks. Give yourself at least a week before the deadline to review your document before submission. And then I just have the timeline and the dates here for you. So similar to what's listed on the continuing student dates and deadlines page, preliminary or first submission, they are due April 9th, final or second submission. It's about April 30th. You want to have submitted something by then, because of course the final deadline for the spring 2021 term and submission and approval is the May 14th. So it's always a good idea to give yourselves about 2 weeks time. Check in with us if you're not sure if you have been given the approval or not, and we'll let you know from there. All right, wonderful. So I gave you basically some resourceful tools about just graduation and very general graduation requirements and resources. And these tools are more specific to the CE accessibility that is particular to your programs and CE requirements. So like I said, we have the Microsoft Office Word available for you guys to use. Again, the thesis dissertation guidelines page, which has the template, and will provide other resources there as well. And then I have a couple of links for you from Microsoft Word themselves in order to show you why, again, ADA is important and how to make your documents more accessible. Now, of course, you can refer to these links, but you can also continue and stay to watch the demo, the live demo that we'll be doing, and then, of course, for the Q&A to answer all of your questions. Although we won't be covering how to create a table of contents, there is a video provided by Microsoft again that covers that. So definitely, if this is something that you will have to include actually for your thesis and scholarly works, then feel free to click on that link. And yes, we do require students to submit Word documents, but unless you are using the LaTeX template, in that case, then we have more resources for you to use the Adobe Acrobat Pro DC Accessibility Checker. We will be going over headings, page breaks, tables and figures, links, and finally, running the accessibility checker.
Preliminary pages are already formatted to be accessible. When I say preliminary pages, I mean the title page, the copyright page, the abstract page, table of content, all those pages are referred to as the preliminary pages. Notice that in the preliminary pages, the headings are already using the style formats that are built into Microsoft Word. This is something that if you do not use our template, you would have to do in your template before submitting. Also notice that the page numbers for the preliminary pages are in the bottom center of the page, and they begin in the abstract page. So the first pages will not have the number, but it is still counted. So you will begin numbers in page 5. Also, I do want to note that a common mistake that students make with their thesis is the name. So please be consistent with your name. You will have to type it in a few pages. Just make sure that it is formatted in the same way throughout your thesis. And you can just copy and paste it. We don't really care in what format you enter it. If you prefer first name, middle name, last name, or first name, middle initial, last name, first name, last name, it doesn't really matter as long as it is consistent throughout your work. Now I am going to go to the certification of approval page. And I just want to note that if you don't have this many committee members, you can simply remove the spaces. So I can just, if let's say I have 3, I can just come here and then remove it. And you can just use these 3 spaces. Okay, so now I'm just going to go down to the beginning of my thesis because that's where I will begin the demonstration. And the first thing I want to do is use the built-in headings from the Styles menu on the Home tab for each of my titles throughout my thesis. So I am just going to drag my cursor through my title, and I'm just going to give it the heading 2. You will begin using heading 2 for your thesis content. And I'm just going to go to my subtitle and use heading 3. And if you have subsections, then you would use heading 4 or 5, whatever is relevant. Again, I'm just going to go here to my chapter 1 and use heading 2. And my subtitle for that section and use heading 3. Again here, heading 2. And I think that's it. Okay. And if you use the headings consistently and properly, it'll help you build your table of contents through Microsoft Word, and it is a really useful tool. Okay, now the second thing you want to do is insert a page break after each section. So The reason why we do this is because readers will read spaces even though there is nothing there. So it'll read, let's say, the last sentence of your content, and it'll say blank, 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 chapter 1. To avoid this, we will remove these spaces and simply place your cursor at the end of your section. And under the Insert tab, you're going to go to Pages, and you're going to go to Page Break. And sometimes it'll do this, but you can simply place your cursor at the end of your page break and place it where you want it to be. And I see that there's an additional space here, so I'm just going to remove it and make sure that this is formatted properly and it is still heading to, okay, this is fine. So I'm just going to go down and see all of these spaces need to be removed for the reader to not read them. So I'm just going to place my cursor at the end of this section, insert, page break, and you will see here. Sometimes it'll create a new space, but you can simply remove it. And that's it. That's all you have to do with the page breaks. Just make sure it is consistent throughout and that you do not have unnecessary spaces. The next thing I want to go over are tables. Where is my table? Sorry. All right. So the first thing you want to do with a table is enter alternative text. And to do this, you're just going to highlight the table and right-click to Table Properties. Under Table Properties, you can go to the Alternative Text tab and enter your description in here. You don't need to enter a title because you are already entering a title above your table. And so all you have to do is enter a description here. So, well, let me actually copy and paste it so it doesn't take too much. So again, highlight the table, right click, Table Properties. And I'm going to enter the description. It doesn't have to be too long. You can be brief, but please be thoughtful and descriptive with your alternative text. And just press OK and it should be there. So the next thing I want to go over in the table is you have to identify the headers of the table as the header in order for the reader to read your table properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag my cursor across your header, and it can be a column or it can be a row. And then I'm just going to go to Table Design tab, and I'm just going to say that this is my header. And all you have to do is click on it and it'll be saved. And lastly, I need to identify my table title as such in order for the reader to read that this is a table title and not a subtitle or a subsection. So I'm just gonna drag my cursor through my table title, and I'm just gonna go to my headings and look for the table title. It's right here. Okay, and you are done with your table. And I'm just gonna highlight that using the table title will also help you in building a list of tables for your preliminary pages. Okay, so next I'm gonna go through my figures. And again, maybe the first thing I wanna do is make my figure title identified as a title. So I'm just gonna drag my cursor through the title and identify it as a figure title. Then I'm gonna click on my figure and then right click and enter the alternative text. Edit alt text, and it'll appear here at the right. And you can simply enter the text. And you don't need to click save, you can just close it. For this, however, I am going to not enter the text just so that once we run an accessibility check, you will see what an error looks like. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is links throughout your thesis. We are not going to be too strict on this. However, we would rather you enter a hyperlink rather than the whole link, and this is to prevent the reader from reading the entire link with the HTTP, the whole link. Instead, we would rather you use a title of what the link is, and then just hyperlink it. And I'm just going to go over really quickly what how to hyperlink. All you have to do is, let me look for San Francisco State. You're going to drag your cursor through the title, right click, and click on link. Then you can just enter here the hyperlink. And it'll be hyperlinked. Now we know that your works cited will need to have a link or not, however it is that you want to format it, or whatever style formatting you're following, that's fine. But for your content of your thesis, we would rather you use hyperlinks and not an entire link. So after we are done formatting our thesis, we're just going to run accessibility check, and you can go to the search bar and type in accessibility checker, and then it'll show you here what you are missing. And this is one of the reasons why we want to use Microsoft Word, and it is because it'll show you here what the errors are, but also it'll give you a step-by-step instructions on how to fix it. So this is telling me that I am missing alternative text for my figure. So again, I am just going to enter the alternative text by right-clicking, edit all text, entering my alternative text, and closing it. You'll see that it's not, the error disappears. Now it is warning me that this is hard to read. So I'm just going to go there, and it is telling me that it is hard to read this because it is a menu. So I'm just going to select dissertation. And this is what we are looking for, that your thesis does not have any issues. Stop sharing. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Muhammad or myself. Happy thesis.